you going, guys? Steve here from Australian 4x4 Adventures, and this is going to be bloody cool. Mainly because you guys have been asking me to do this one for weeks now since this product came out. You can probably get a little tiny glimpse of it back there. So, the King's 3000 watt brand new inverter that they've just brought out. It's only been out a couple of weeks now. They did not send me one. I did message them. I won't go into the response I got. Just say they've seen my videos. Obviously, so I'm going to compare the 3000 watt to the 1500 watt there. Obviously, I've used the 1500 watt now for a while, and I actually think it's a really good product. Surprisingly enough, it pains me to say that Kings have actually done something half alright. So, not bad for the 1500 watt. Let's see how the 3000 watt goes. First off, let's roll that intro. Right, so we're here. Comparing the 3000 watt King's inverter to the 1500 watt, you presume that it's going to be double the size because it's literally 15 to 3000, double. Comparing physical size, you're only talking about an extra third bigger in actual length. Width-wise is exactly the same, and there's the garage door. And height is exactly the same there as well. So the only thing to consider when you're trying to fit this in your car is obviously it's an extra 150 mil longer than what the 1500 watt one was. I'm keen as mud to see how this sucker goes overall. Obviously the 1500 watt performed flawlessly for me. I've had a few reports of people telling me that they're crap, horrible, it blew up on them, burnt the car down. Probably didn't burn the car down, but just they'd come out to the car and it's just full of smoke because something had gone wrong in this. Haven't actually heard of a car being burnt down, so don't sue me anyway. I think that's King's biggest downfall, isn't the fact that they've got bad products. I think their quality control from one product to the next is a little bit lackluster in the sense of what I have might be really good and the next person might get a really bad version of it, but it's the same thing. I think that's their biggest downfall overall. So keen to see how this thing goes. I want to run my induction cooktop, my air fryer at the same time and see how it goes. All right, so really quickly on some of the nitty-gritty parts of it. The 1500 watt inverter I found really good. You could always overclock it a little bit. So at 1500 watts, I could get this baby to sit at around about 16 to 1700 for almost indefinitely. I never actually made it kick out. Once it kicked out, I think, because it sort of tipped about 1800, and it kicked out because I think it actually got too hot over time. I think they had an overclock if you get them up to 2000 watts for 30 seconds maybe, something like that. And it worked for me. I could run, say, an air fryer and turn the induction on for a little bit and it'll cut out pretty quick, but it would cut out trying to run both together. I can't find any stats on this one to prove that this is the same. So it's 3000 to say 3500 for a spike or for a surge or something. It just says 3000 watts, that's it, won't go over it, blah, blah, blah. That's everything I can see on the box and everything in the little user manual here. It says nothing about overclocking or a surge protection or a surge value there. It's purely 3000. So I don't know if that's the case or not. Obviously same little features as the last one. On the front here you've got the little remote switch access side of it. So it's just a little Ethernet cable and you can run that through to a panel in the back of your car. So you can turn the inverter on and off from a button at the back of your car using this little Ethernet cable section there. Obviously USB chargers and the inlets for both, on 240 inlets on both as well. Slightly redesigned there in the sense of these ones just completely flat, nothing on them. 10 amp, 240 volt. These don't actually say that, they just got, it's flat with a little indentation inside there. What's that say? 10 amp, 250 volt. Well, there you go, there's a slight difference. So that says 240 volt, this says 250 volt. Probably makes no difference. Alright, so that's the unit installed now. I've actually, from where I had it last time, I've actually brought it further back towards the back of the car, so it's a little bit easier for me to reach. I had it mounted towards the back seat of the car before. It was a real pain in the ass to try and reach in, but I figured because this one's a little bit longer, it's going to come this way anyway. This is why I didn't actually buy the remote, because that's quite easy for me to reach just there. So, turns on, so that's the first thing. We're winning that stage. I did notice though, on the back, the terminals are a little bit wobbly. So I've tightened them right up. So that sort of wobbles around a bit there, especially the negative one, like that, or the earth. That's got a heap of movement in there. So I'm thinking about actually stop that from vibrating as well. I might actually see if I can stuff some non-conductive material sort of in there just to hold that still, but I might actually have a look at the other one and see if that one does the same thing. So obviously I've just used the factory wiring that came with it, so that's some thick ass cable from there, and this one was through the grommet before, but just I couldn't get it to twist back and connect to the battery properly, so at the moment I've just run it in behind, and that'll do for now. And excuse the really bright lighting back in the shed. So I just wanted to double check the 1500 watt one and see if that does the same wobble. So the negative, oh, it's got a little bit in it, but definitely not as much as the other one overall. Don't know. Let's put this baby to the test. So we'll start off small, just so I don't blow my car up. Start off with I'll figure out something. But my ultimate goal here is to run the induction and the air fryer together. I think that's a fair thing. When you go camping, who doesn't want to do that? Alright, so I've got my little setup done here for you. So I've got a bit of a multitude of things. I'm going to start out fairly slowly and for the tradies. So obviously it's a pure sine wave inverter, so it's safe for all of your sensitive equipment. So batteries aren't too bad. Lithium will take, it's dirty, it'll take any power. But laptops and phone chargers and all that sort of stuff that's sensitive to voltage, it's safe for that sort of stuff. So obviously out in the building site, charger, no dramas at all. So obviously I'm just going to monitor this as well on the DCS app that we've got here. Well, needs refreshing. Always needs refreshing. It's probably the biggest bugbear with the DCS stuff. The app is shit, to say the least. Alright, so that's using 15 amps, and obviously the fridge is running at the same time as well, so we're good. So that's clear thing. So I'm just going to take that out of the way, reduce that item from one thing. Power source. So this is my nasty one. I generally put a like a concrete cutting blade on this and do saw cuts in concrete. This is my one I don't like. Azeto, so no soft start on it. It's 1200 watts. Generally these things are a big killer for inverters because there's no soft start. It's just sort of straight away into 1200 watts, and it's using every little bit of it. So, and legitimately, I haven't tried any of this stuff yet. I'm learning how we go here. So sorry about the noise. That was using about 75 amps doing that. So that's using a fair bit of power. Now, alright, so I'm just going to run them individually to start with. So my theory behind needing both, and everyone, I always cop out, you don't need that stuff, why do you need such a big inverter? And firstly, because I want to. It's my setup. I'm going to set it up the way I want it. If you want to take ice blocks camping, you do you. I want a fridge, an induction, an air fryer, and a toaster. It's just the way I want to camp. I don't judge you, don't judge me. We're good, we're square. All right, so my theory behind being able to want to run all of these things together is because that's what it takes to cook a meal sometimes. Say you're doing bacon and eggs in the morning. So bacon and eggs, going to need a toaster, do your toast, because I don't like fire toast because it always comes out charcoal. It's just not what I like. And you need your cooktop to do your bacon and eggs on there. So that's my theory behind it. Dinner time, generally you're going to do, say you're doing steak and chips. Nice, and steak and chips in the bush. Who doesn't want that? Seriously. So you're doing your steak and whatever else on your cooktop. Do your chips in your air fryer. For me, it's a no-brainer personally, but that's what I reckon. So let's just chuck that air fryer on, mainly because I just want to see what the inverter does as I start to load it up slowly. So with the air fryer on, we're doing 109 amps now. I think that's because we're using the fridge at the same time. Normally it's around about 98, 99 amps. So 113, so maybe it's just drawing a little bit more. Or maybe, unless that inverter is just a little bit less efficient. Don't know, but it's definitely giving me a different current draw overall. So that's obviously fine. That's 113 amps. Doing its thing. Alright, so rather than do everything at once, so toaster. That's plugged in as well, down here, into the inverter. So toast is down, do your toast. So we're doing 76 amps, 77 amps now. Perfect. So far the thermal fans on the inverter haven't kicked on, so clearly it hasn't heated up enough yet to turn on. I think in the older one it probably might have kicked on by now, because it actually kicked on pretty early in the old one, which I didn't mind, but it is what it is. So that's hunky-dory there as well. So, hold with me, 2 seconds. Just stopping midway through the video here, which I normally don't do, but it's my video, so why not? Just wanted to remind you guys, if you guys have got stickers, or anything at all actually, want to send some stickers along to get onto the wall, I would really appreciate that, because I'm trying to decorate some of this area and I want to do it from you guys. I want you guys to be part of the channel. I want you to be sort of involved with it all. That's what this is all about, to try and get everyone together and have a bit of community spirit. So if you've got stickers, anything else you want to chuck on the wall, send them out, send me a DM or whatever, and we'll get that sorted. If you're a sponsor and you want to get some big ticket items, down along the bottom down here, obviously shoot me a message, we'll see what we can sort out, and your products can be part of the video as well for an ongoing effect, which that'll be pretty cool. Lastly, who wants a shed tour? Had a couple people mention it to me now. I thought, oh, no one's going to be interested in that, but turns out, getting a few messages. Chuck it down in the comments down below if you'd like to do a full shed tour / YouTube tour of my setup. So there we go. Back to the video. I just got water in the pot here. So chuck that on. Chuck it on flat chat. How do you do that? There we go. Max power. So that's using 142 amps. Yeah, and it's sucking some juice out of the battery now. DCS is good for, I think I said 250 amps out any given time, continuous. I think we're about to find out. What I'm going to let it do though, before I go killing it too much, I'm just going to, because I want to try and see if I can warm the inverter up, see how it goes when it actually warms up, and then that'll give us a better representation if it's going to trip out earlier because it's hot when I start loading it up with lots of power at once. So I'm actually just going to let this water boil, which is, I don't know, we'll say minute and a half, 2 minutes, because induction is pretty damn quick, and then we'll play around with this, maybe play around with sort of this and the toaster together, and then that and that together, see what happens. Okay, so that's only been around about a minute and a half, so it was pretty damn quick. So that water's boiling now. So I'm trying to actually be as fair as I can to the inverter. I'm not trying to prove that it's bad or it's good. I'm trying to give you a genuine experience on how something's going to get used out in the bush. So an example of this would be, obviously, say you're simmering something away, so you've got a heap of heat to it, or you say you've fried your steak, whatever you're doing there, probably more of a simmer, because frying your steak you probably would turn it off. If you overcook your steak, and don't overcook your steak, people, it's a bad thing. All right, so you've gone to the effort, you've got your something coming up to simmer, so you can put that to simmer there, and you go, oh cool, that needs 10 minutes to simmer. I'm going to do chips with it. So chips are going to take 10-15 minutes. Oh, better turn the air fryer on. Oh, this is going to suck some power. 222 amps out of the battery. This is what I want to use it for, so this is how I'm going to test it. I hope to hell it lasts. It doesn't burn my car down. This is why we're out, genuinely, this is why we're outside. Alright, just to show you though, so that's also the DCS app, just so you get a representation of what that's like. So obviously the battery voltage, or battery percentage at the top there, gives you the battery voltage. Obviously it's low at the moment because we're sucking a whole bunch out of it. Then we've got the negative 219 amps because, you know, running everything. It's currently 16 degrees, and I've done 52 cycles on this particular battery. So this is sitting on 1200 watts for the actual induction cooker. It's just nicely bubbling away for a simmer. Probably a little bit high for a simmer, so maybe I'll just bump it down just a frag. Just a frag, nothing much. You know, you're always going to be tinkering with these things as you're doing stuff in the kitchen. You can tell I don't cook, right? I cook when I'm camping, but I don't do this stuff. Alright, so bumping that down, that extra 200 watts. Now we're sitting at 208 amps overall. So it's smashing the battery. It's really giving it a hard time. But here's what it is. So air fryer is actually up to temperature now. So that actually cycles on and off as it goes to keep temperature. So that's dropped down to 93 amps now. So when they say 200 amps to do it, you're not constantly using 200 amps, especially with something like this. It heats up, it's just running a fan, and then it cools down. Speaking of fans, I just heard the fans on the inverter kick on, which is a good sign. Alright, so that fan, I just wanted to, yeah, it's fanning. Alright, so they're twin thermo fans on the back there as well. Puts out a fair bit of air actually, which is nice how I got my cables, because it keeps my cables nice and cool as well. And it seemed like they actually just dimmed down slightly then, so I reckon maybe they're, and I'm sure this is in the instruction part of it, and I'm sure someone will read it, but I'm not going to be that person. I think they're actually temperature controlled, so they'll ramp up and down depending on the amount of juice you're trying to pull out of it. I'm impressed. I could never do this with the 1500 watt one before. Not because it was a bad inverter, just it wasn't big enough. So now I've got one big enough. Bring on steak and chips. So this has been going for a little while now. The fans on the inverter has been going strong, so clearly it can sustain air fryer and this on a medium heat. So that's about 215 amps out of the battery at the same time. So this is only going to last an hour like this, doing this. So it's sucking some real juice. But alright, so let's turn this off. Let's switch to breakfast now. So I know frying, so doing eggs and bacon on this thing, I need around between 12 and 1400 watts out of it. So I'm going to bump it to 1400, which is the upper limit of what I'd ever fry on. Let's see how we go. So that's using 112 amps now. My toast needs to go down. So let's put the toast down. 193 amps overall. So that's still well within it. So it's actually using less power than what the air fryer was using before, which I'm happy about. It means I can fry my bacon a little bit faster if I want to. So that's at 1600 now, and that's 210, 1800 watts, and still 210, 215. Let's just bump it right up, shall we? 220, 225, 226. So this is on flat chat, and the toast is running. I'm using about 220 amps out of the battery at any given time. So that's obviously still credit to the DCS battery that's still running to run this. So clearly I can do my steak and chips at the same time. Clearly I can do my eggs and bacon and do my toast at the same time. obviously I'm leaving all this running right now to make sure that it's not going to cut out because it overheats or does something stupid. So I want to make sure it's capable of actually lasting long enough to do the meal, not just 30 seconds of the meal like some sort of devices might let you do. So I want to make sure that it's good. It's going to actually hold in there. So I will bump that back down just a touch down to say 1400, so that's realistic. As I said before, trying to be fair to the product overall. So using around about 200 amps out of the 190 amps out of the battery now. So I'm just going to leave this for a few minutes just until almost all this water's gone. That'll be a full maybe 10 minutes of cooking and toaster and everything else. So that'll be a fair representation to make sure the inverter is good enough. And then I'm just going to just slowly load it up and load it up until something gives out. I don't know what that's going to be first. Okay, test time. So I've refilled this full of water, brought it back up to the boil, so the inverter is nice and hot. It's been running on 2000 watts now for the last 5 minutes or so because there's a lot of water in this one, so it's taken a while to come back up to the heat. I've just turned it down to 1000 watts. I'm going to turn on the air fryer. So now I'm running 1000 watts here plus the air fryer. That's obviously going to suck a fair bit of juice out of it as well. I'm just going to keep bumping this up. Well, hopefully the inverter cuts out and the safety features sort of kick in. So 1200, so that's pulling 215 amps, 1400, 225 amps, might get all the way, I don't know. 240 amps, I'm getting close to the battery limit. 1800. 250 amps out of the battery. Screw it. 2000 watts, so that's maximum. 262 amps coming out of the battery right now. Oh. Everything's just died. Alright, so that's the battery. The battery gave out first. Because the fridge is turned off, air fryer's turned off, this is turned off, all my light, there you go, everything's just reset. So that's the BMS in the battery itself resetting, which is fantastic to know that the actual battery sort of has that safety built in as well, thank God. So obviously all that stuff's reset. This hasn't turned back on because the inverter lost power, so that means I have to manually turn it back on. But that's all working. It's pretty much press the button. Air fryer should turn straight back on because that was still going. This I need to return back on manually. But that's that must be cycling at the moment because apparently we're only using 2 amps. Which is nothing. So that must just be cycling for heat. It must have sort of got up to temperature and decided that was it. So there you go. So my limiting factor now is no longer my inverter. That can outdo my battery. And I thought my battery was pretty damn good. I think it is pretty damn good. Anything lithium obviously is the only way that you're going to be able to sort of draw this sort of power out of any sort of battery unless you're going to run the car. So you can't do this out of an AGM or a lead acid battery without running the car with a hell of a battery charger plugged into it at the same time to keep that voltage up. Otherwise the voltage is going to drop and the inverter is going to think that the battery's flat and turn everything off that way. So yeah, so that's fired back up now using 100 amps. That's nothing for what we're doing. But essentially it means that I can almost run my air fryer in this flat chat, and the inverter kept going. Like the inverter's, wow! I was not expecting that at all. I honestly thought the inverter would cut out before. I didn't even think about the battery until just then. I don't know what to say. that's pretty cool. Alright, so that's obviously by no means a comprehensive review of the product because I haven't had it long enough. I literally installed it today. But I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of what it's capable of and what you could possibly use it for. So, and this looks really cool, this steam coming up, right? It's probably just right in the way. A long-term review will be coming down the track. Obviously the 1500 watt one never really came because I only had it for I had it for nearly 2 years, so probably should have done one, but I didn't. Overall, love the inverter. I'm probably going to save that maybe for a caravan or give it to someone. I've got no bloody idea what I'm going to do, to be honest with you. Maybe I'll even give it away to one of you guys. Maybe chuck it in the comments down below if you reckon I should give it away to one of you awesome people for subscribing to the channel. And that leads me into, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and as always, I'll see you next week.